Good morning. Joe Cox with Life Made Simple here, talking about all the narcissism in your life and how it affects you. I had a question come from a subscriber, and her question was, well, how is it that kids in the family that grow up, some seem to have so many problems and the others seem to be happy, have love, and that sort of thing? So I'm going to address it from several different standpoints. One is the reality of what happened in our family, but also I realize every child in a family has a different experience. It could be that one, like for instance, my life, I had two narcissistic parents. So my mother was more of an malignant narcissist, whereas my father was more covert. He kind of like, oh, kind of built my trust, and then he'd pull out the rug. And so the day I realized that both my parents were total self-centered, self-absorbed, and had no real knowledge or, I guess, self-awareness to want to do good for their children and really want their children to not only survive but thrive. So the question is, what causes one child to do better than the other? Couple of things. One, it depends on how bad the parent treated each child. That's one factor. Another factor could be the level of consciousness the person is born into. In other words, when we're born into this life, we're the perfect us. You are the perfect you. But each person, from their eternal evolution, has a consciousness level they're born into. For instance, highly sensitive people, empaths, have the hardest time, I believe, with narcissists because they absorb all the energy and they think and feel so deeply. I was an empath, and it wreaked hell on me. I mean, havoc, big time. It just twisted my soul, and I became a people pleaser, trying to please everybody. And this is before all this stuff. I'm going on 60 years old, and a lot of this stuff I didn't learn until my late 40s, early 50s. This is when my life started falling into place. I reconnected with my wife from what is now my wife, and now, but I knew her at 15 years old. And I look back and I'm like, okay, I know why we didn't get together years ago. It's because I was so twisted. I wouldn't have been a good husband. I wouldn't have been a good boyfriend. I'd have been probably very rebellious at the time because I was twisted. And that's what a narcissist does to you. But to answer your question, what makes each person have a different? We're down here at the property today burning, and actually I can look in the uh, camera and I can see the fire behind me. So I am keeping an eye on it. But what makes the difference? One person, a lot of different factors. It can be anywhere from the people you hang around. Like for instance, we went to when I was growing up at 8 years old, we joined a church that was a very narcissistic, give of yourself, altruistic, never think of yourself. And here, what does a narcissist do? The same thing. So it felt like I was getting it on both barrels. Um, Today, I have total balance because I understand what I went through and how. I think the biggest problem we have is once we start seeing it, we get anger and bitterness because of you realize you were played a fool. That's what I felt anyway. I realized I was played a fool. So I had to learn forgiveness. So how did I eventually learn to live in love and peace? I had to evolve, get away from the narcissist, forgive them for all the damage they've done. And if I looked at my past, I would never be happy because I have not had a happy life probably the first 45 years, 50 years of my life. Now I'm at total peace. And I think if you ever ask somebody, what is the purpose of life? It's finding yourself. Who are you? Finding that peace, that joy. And you can look at, read all these stories on people that were in the concentration camps and came out and were eventually happy. A lot of them had their parents and all killed, but they wound up finding peace and joy in life because we're only here a short time. So we're here for a purpose. So a lot of people say, well, aren't we here for happiness? That was my purpose, I thought, is to find happiness. This is what I learned, and this is I believe searching for happiness in itself is going to lead you down a dark road. But happiness is the result of a life well lived. So once you find balance within yourself, mind, body, and spirit, then that's when the peace comes in. And peace is the heartbeat of happiness. Okay, without peace, you're not going to have happiness. Without forgiveness, you're not going to have happiness. There are certain factors, there are certain ingredients. Like think about making a cake. There are certain ingredients you have to put in it for you to have peace and harmony and life. There's certain ingredients, and I think that might be a good video in itself, just going through what the ingredients of happiness is. But I don't want to get off track. To answer the question about what is it that you have two children. So I'll give you an example. There's four of us from my two parents. Then my mother remarried. I have a stepsister that I get along fine with. And then I have a half brother that was the golden child. I have no ill will towards him, but he was given everything um, from my perspective compared to us four. So it was me, I was the oldest, then my sister, then I have a brother, and then a youngest brother. Well, my youngest brother, he was so, I realize now looking back, he passed away at 29 years old of alcoholism. In order to die of alcoholism that young, you have to be drinking some serious alcohol. Well, what happened is that my father, narcissistic father, knew he was an alcoholic, but bought him a bar. You see how that plays out? He's trying to find himself, trying to figure it all out, and his father is just leading him down a darker and darker path with no empathy of what he's going through. All narcissists do is see on the outside what they see with their eyes, and they have interpretations of whatever they want it to be. Whereas so they live from the mind, the conscious mind. So people that live from the heart, they live from a deeper level. They live from the spirit. They raise their consciousness. Low consciousness people live from the mind, only see what they want to see, and have their own interpretations of what applies to them. You'll when you watch other videos on narcissism, you get the general idea. But I try to go into it a little bit deeper to help you understand why do they behave that way. One thing I will say, don't ever take it personal. It's not, that whole narcissism thing is not about you. Whether it was you or somebody else, they're going to treat them the same way, especially the more you stand up for yourself and the more you have your own individuality. Narcissism is all about, and this is to me the clearest definition, is the attitude is it is a control or destroy. If they can't control you, that's their first goal. The second one is destroy you. All narcissism I've seen across the board does that, whether they're malignant, covert, overt, whatever kind, sociopath, psychopath, all that is pretty much in the same category. Whereas like my mother and my father both, they actually get joy out of watching their kids suffer. When I realized that goes to a whole deeper level beyond narcissism and goes into the sociopath, psychopathic area. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not diagnosing them. But I have now cut everybody. I've literally had to cut all my family out. When my youngest brother passed away, he struggled. But I now look back and I can tell he's an empath. He felt so much. And I can tell you stories that my mother did to him that I found out after he passed away. And to my sister-in-law, I keep finding out stuff, and it just blows my mind, and it actually validates so much of my feelings and so many of my struggles going through life. So to make sure I don't get off subject, what causes two people to be in the same family and have different outcomes? Well, all of us, so me, my currently living brother, and my currently living sister, we've all had divorces. We went into bad marriages. You can't get married when you don't even know who you are and what you stand for and what you want out of a marriage. A lot of people get married because they're scared of being alone, that sort of thing. So we all went through divorces. But it's funny because we all went through divorces for, I think, different reasons. My brother, I heard that his wife left him. I haven't spoken to him in years because of the betrayal. He takes him and my father. I'll tell you that story on another video. And my sister, I thought she had a good husband, but she left him. She said it was because he was an alcoholic, but he went to rehab, and they have a child together. And uh, on another video, she called me and cussed me out, and I told you about what happened with that. And I asked her if she wanted to find healing. So I'm the oldest. I tried to be there to help my younger siblings, but because of the triangulation, I think is how you say it, my mother, it's funny, my mother and father have been divorced since 1977. But when it comes to attacking me, they come together because they feel like, well, narcissists can't do anything by themselves. They've always got to have somebody that they team up with. But it's funny, they can't stand each other. They talk about each other. But when it comes to attacking me and holding me accountable for holding them accountable, um, then they come together. And so now my brother, my sister, all of them, but all of them have, dysfunction going on in their lives, and they don't want to heal. I, Nobody wants to sit down and talk about it. They just want to blame. Blame is low on the consciousness level. That's what you do when you're a child. Um, so you gotta. So going back to make sure I answer this question, what causes the difference of two people? It's totally different experiences, but it's the key, I think, is being aware, self-aware of your feelings. The sooner you realize and the sooner you understand that maybe you're not the problem, because let's put it this way, narcissists, it's always somebody else's problem. Empaths have a tendency to always blame themselves for everything and hold themselves accountable. So what happens is you're at each end of the spectrum. And like for instance, I hold myself accountable and I hold them accountable for their part of what they've done. And that's why I can now put up a boundary and say, no, what, got a little smoke there. So once I was able to, the wind shifted. So once I was able to understand that I'm only responsible for myself and my own behavior, then it made it so much more clear. That's why me and my wife, we have a beautiful marriage. She actually had a narcissistic father, narcissistic ex, all this type of stuff. And so we totally relate to each other. And because we grew up with that, we attract what we are, not what we want. So when we come from the energy of a toxic family and we don't know how to get out of it, we're going to attract the very thing we don't even want in our life. That's why you hear a lot about manifesting. Um, I manifest and I keep finding the same person. Well, the problem is, this is what I believe in manifesting, and why so many times it doesn't work. Because one, we're trying to find our peace in somebody else. We're trying to find our balance through someone else. Find your balance of mind, body, and spirit, and we'll go through that on another video. Once you find those, and those are in harmony with another, that is what raises your consciousness. That is what allows you to always see truth and be okay with it. Forgiveness is so. Remember, depression is always about the past. So in order to rid yourself of depression, forgiveness is a key issue on this. And I've heard different people say it's at different points. You forgive them on the front end or forgive them on the back end. Do whatever fits for you, but you cannot have peace, harmony, and happiness if you're holding grudges. I've heard people say, I'll never forgive them. Like that's, I'll show them I'm not going to forgive them. Forgiveness is not even for them, it's for you. And so once we understand all the processes in life and why we do what we do, it, it's going to give us the results we want. For instance, I would not have been ready for my wife, but 30 years later we reconnected and we were perfectly ready because of all our experiences, everything we had grown through. Not only gone through, but what we've grown through for ourselves. So I'm going to cut that for today. I'm going to let that be. But just in summary, what makes the difference of how a person that comes up with self-love versus still struggling? It's all about the consciousness. It's all about being willing to see the truth, about accepting the truth. Um, in accepting the truth in my life, I had to literally restrict, put a boundary up to where I don't let any of those family members in my life anymore. And some of their friends and various people, anybody that is not in harmony with me. And if I call one of my old friends and they're saying, well, I talked to your dad and why are you doing that to him and all? I'll cut them out. I'm like, if they don't want to see the truth, I'm not going to. So what I'm saying is, in order to find joy and happiness, you gotta get away from it and not fix yourself, but work on yourself. We're not broken. We were born to perfect us. You're born in perfect love. And all these toxic emotions, what I'll talk more about trapped emotions and all, are keeping you from seeing, feeling, and living that. But so my brother, both of us were empaths. He passed away. I eventually went through the healing, and I'm connected, and I have a happy life with my wife now. Um, Whereas my other two siblings, I got a brother and a sister, they're still living in the toxic world. They're both divorced, um, and they have anger and all, and none of them want to sit down and try to resolve anything. You don't try to resolve stuff; it's going to be the same old stuff, just a different day. Hopefully, that answers some questions. And if it did not answer some questions or created more questions, leave them below. Like and subscribe. Help me to grow this channel. I want to get the word out. I've lived through 60 years of hell, or 50 years of hell, maybe 52, 53. Um, but now I'm at peace and harmony, and I'm here to share it with the world. I can see stuff, and I look back now. I would never have stayed in anything 5 minutes. I stayed in a toxic relationship for 5, 6 years, something like that. And now, what I know now, I wouldn't have stayed in it 5 minutes because I can clearly see it. Clarity, that's what you want. This is what this channel is about. It's helping you to understand what you need to know in order to have clarity in your life. Because remember, confusion is where all darkness begins. Hopefully this has been a good lesson for you, and like and subscribe, and I look forward to having you on the next video. Bye-bye now.